The next one is shared key authentication. So after OpenAuth, this is slightly complex as compared to OpenAuth. OpenAuth was like an authentication, right? In shared key authentication in SKA, we use a web key. Okay, a web key is configured on the client and the access point. A web key is configured on both the client and the access point. Of course, if the web key doesn't match, the authentication of course will not happen, right? This is pretty much similar to OpenAuth, but it includes a challenge and a response between the AP and the client. Okay, so hear me out. Now, how this works is we have a static key that is a web key configured on both the client and the access point. Okay, the client, when sending an authentication request to an access point, there will be an authentication request auth request going. Okay, the AP will send back a clear text challenge to the client. That is the second step. Now the client who has the web key with him will encrypt the challenge or the clear text and sends it back to the AP. Okay, now when the clear text reaches the AP, sorry, the encrypted clear text reaches the AP will decrypt the clear text. Okay, I mean, anyway, this goes to the step number 3. The encrypted clear text goes to the AP in the form of another authentication request. Okay, another request, just like step number 1. Now the AP will decrypt the station's response and compare it to the clear text challenge that was sent initially by the AP. Now, because this key, the web key here, was used to encrypt this clear text which was with the client. Now if the web key was the same, then AP will use the same web key to decrypt the clear text, and if it gets the same clear text that it sent, which means it's successful, right? So it'll either grant success or failure. These are the 4 steps. That's why it's called a 4-way authentication. In a way, it's a 4-way authentication mechanism. Let's write down here: 4-way authentication mechanism, shared key authentication, right? So this has a few steps. It's a little more complicated than OpenAuth, where you use a web key. Now, of course, this looks more secure when compared to an OpenAuth, right? So why do we even use OpenAuth and why do we not use SKA? Now here comes the catch. If you see this web key configured on both the client and the access point, once the client is authenticated in a SKA or in a shared key authentication, the same static web key will be used during the encryption of .11 frames then. Okay, that same web key is used for encryption of 802.11 frames. Okay, this is mandatory. They have to, in this authentication, the same web key has to be used for .11 frame encryption also. Now the problem is, if this web key is compromised, if this web key is a single key, right? If this web key is compromised, then the entire network goes for a toss, right? It's a whole new can of worms that is opened, and now all the data frames can be decrypted very easily if somebody has access to the web key. So it's as good as, letting somebody in your network. So it has got a lot of problems because of this mandatory use of the same web key to encrypt the .11 frames that are sent over the air, right? That's why we prefer to use OpenAuth with .1x or pre-shared key or whatever, rather than using SKA and you have got to pretty much use the same web key for that. So that's why this is not used anymore. It's kind of obsolete. You will hardly see SKA working in any network, right? That's why we prefer OpenAuth, because it has the possibility to work with 802.1x for network authentication. So if in your vendor SSID settings, if you ever see somewhere OpenAuth plus .1x, this is what it means. OpenAuth plus .1x. OpenAuth is happening on layer 1, .1x is happening on layer 2. Okay, so do not get confused. It's layer 1 auth, and then later on association happens, which I'm going to talk about in the next video, and then layer 2 authentication, network authentication happens, where a user is supposed to present the username and the password to get authenticated, right? A lot of people in the Wi-Fi world get this wrong, so please understand this properly. A lot of folks that I've spoken to in the Wi-Fi world, they get this part wrong. They don't know the difference between layer 1 auth and the layer 2 auth. So please, I hope this was clear to you. Keep this with you, whenever you have a discussion with anybody else, you should be able to understand and remember this, right? So I'm just going to move to the next video, where I'm going to talk about association with you. Okay, thank you.